Hi there. Chord Symbols Explained ends right here in part 3. In part 2 we looked at the ninth chord in all its variations. The ninth chord is a foundation for the 11th and the 13th chord, which we're going to examine right now. The 11th chord, the same note as a fourth. The difference between a sus and an 11th is that a sus is an altered triad or a dominant chord, where an 11th is an extension of a 7 as well as a 9. This is the mainstay chord, F11. It's understood that it is supported with a 7 as well as a 9. So this 9 here is really unnecessary. You should know that that would be part of the 11th. So I have seen that. Both are possible. This is the main one. So the F11, well, the 11th, as I've already pointed out, is the same note as the fourth. So it's based on my triad with a 7. The 11 is going to be an extension of the 9, so I've got to have the 9 in there. But when I go up to the 11th, the fourth note of the scale, I'm going to have to pull the third here because the 11th is taking the place of the third. So there is my F11. You might get a publisher saying C minor 7 stroke F, when they really do mean an F11. 5, 7, 9, 11, the F root. Of course, a lot of things can happen underneath an 11th. For example, a flat 9, which is depicted with either the flat 9 symbol or a minus 9. So notice when you use a flat 9 on 11th, the 11th is given first, and then you backtrack to the altered note, in this case, the flat 9. Here's the F11 with just a flatted 9. So here's my 9, I'm going to flatten it. You really hear the tension. You could get a chord saying F11, F11 flat 9, and then of course going on to another chord altogether. Oh, the minor 11th, one of the most romantic warm chords, based on a minor 7th with an added 9th and an 11th. Could come at you as a small case M or a minus 11. Both are the same. Probably one of the nicest romantic chords out there is an F minor 11. F minor triad, the 7, the 9, and the 11. Well, of course, the 11th can be raised as well. So you go up to the highest number that's not changed, and then to the top number that is changed. So we have an F9 with a raised or sharp 11. F9 augmented 11. So here is my F9. Here's my 11. And if I augment the 11, it would come up to here. Once augmented, I can actually slide in the third down here, and probably would. So when you have an augmented 11th, you can have a major third in the chord as well. The top dog of them all. We don't go any higher than a 13. 13 is the same note as a 6. The difference between a 6 and a 13 is that a 6 is added to the triad, making it a 4-note chord, where 13 is an extension of a 9, a 10, which is the same as a 3 and a 13, or a 9, 11, 13. Based on the triad, there's my 7, there's my 9, and the 13 is the same as a 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here it is, an F13, an E flat 13, a D13. Top dog of them all. We have to be able to differentiate between a 13 that doesn't have an 11 or a 13 that does have an 11. So the 11 has to come back into the chord so that we know that we're using the 11th rather than the 10th, 10th being the same as a third. Two ways of notating this, F13 and 11 or F13 stroke 11. Mind you, the 13 and the 1311 are literally interchangeable, but
with a difference. I better explain that too.
So here's a 13-11. Notice I pulled out the third when I went to the 11. So if we're going to be using the 11 as part of our extension, that has to be mentioned in the chord symbol. This is just a simple F13. But if I want to use the 11, we have to be able to differentiate between the 13 and the 13-11. So we have to mention the 11s. The piano player isn't playing that and the guitar player playing that, so we have to have consensus. F13, 7, 9, 3, 13, and F13-11, 1, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. And both are used.
Of course, a chord like a 13th, the top dog, has a support system underneath it which can be altered. In this case, we go up to the top chord, which is a 13. That hasn't been changed. And now we backtrack as to what has been altered. Well, we're using an 11th instead of a 10th. We're using a flat 9 instead of a 9. 13, using an 11. Oh, and by the way, we're going to flatten the 9. Both these chord symbols are interchangeable.
So 13, 11 with a flat 9. So it's 1, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Here's my 9. I'm going to flatten it. And it may work in conjunction with F13, 11, flat 9. And again, moving on to another chord.
Here we're sharpening the 11th on the 13th. That's also possible. So we would notate it as an F13 augmented 11th or F13 plus 11.
So there's my 11 and augmented 11th. Bit on the raunchy side, but it does have a name. So this would be an F13 augmented 11.
Here's the protocol again. We go up to the top note that is not altered. We would say an F13 with an augmented or sharpened 11, and then we go back down the pike to, by the way, we're not using a regular 9, we're using a flat 9. So it would read F13 with a change of an augmented 11th, and also the 9th is flattened. Well, this looks like quite a mess, but all these chords are the same. We do not have a standardization of chord symbols, as I've already mentioned. So because of that, there's so many different versions of the same chord out there, I couldn't possibly cover them all. And here's a good example of that. All the top notes are altered, so you have to go up to the top note of the chord that is not altered. In this case, the 7. That's there. If it had been a major 7th, then it would have been something else. But the 7th is not altered, so we establish that. Then we go up to the very top dog, which happens to be the 11, and we note that it's sharpened or augmented. And as we come backwards, we find that the 9th has been altered, so therefore we have to say it's a flat 9. Oh, and by the way, when we get all the way back down, the 5th has been sharpened. It'd be a very wonky sounding chord, to say the least. And here are 3 different ways of saying exactly the same thing. Notice here the plus just by itself. Remember, without a number after the plus, it refers to the 5. They're all considered the same.
Well, that's a wrap for part 1, 2, and 3 of Chord Symbols Explained. I hope you got some information out of that and will help you along your way in understanding how chord symbols work. Don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to working with you again. So as always, until next time, bye for now.